you might just get snapped up by Donald Trump in the U.S. military.
Got him.
In the middle of the night, on January 2nd, Trump went ahead and took over the president of Cuba. God damn it.
Cuba.
Hold on. Start over.
Cut.
Welcome to the night zone. Hear the warriors speak. Life's the battlefield and we ain't feeling weak. From love to the game and the power we seek. Our voice is strong, breaking every peak. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast, let's ride the wave. Politics and prayers, ain't no subject we shun. Keep it real, keep it raw till the battle's won. Fitness tips to faith, every topic under the sun. With honor and valor, every man's battle begun. Warriors with word swords through the air. Every point sharp and every talk fair. Knights at the round table, come and pull up a chair. Join the brotherhood, words laid bare. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Guys Night Podcast. If it's dark outside, be careful because Donald Trump and his U.S. Army might just come and snatch you up in the middle of the night like they did in Venezuela. Is it good? Is it bad? We're going to break it down tonight from a basis of regular Joes sitting at the desk. Some people worry about being conflict. Some people say he's preventing conflict. Others say, is it going to stop Russia and China from doing the same? And I ask you, what just happened to good old-fashioned executions of foreign leadership? Why make it complicated? This is what we get. Welcome to the Guys Night Podcast. What's up, David?
Oh, I thought you said my name was Joe a second ago. Average. Joe Average. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year indeed. All right, so we're going to make this one a quick podcast tonight. We're probably going to spend about an hour on it. We haven't met and talked about this at all. Everybody's got their different points of view. I really haven't spent a whole lot of time obsessing over it because, frankly, it's just Trump being Trump at this point. But yeah, let's run down the reason for it. Supposedly is he keeps pumping fentanyl and other drugs into the United States all the way from Venezuela through smugglers and things like that. So we consider him and many of the gangs over there now terrorists to the United States because of that. Trump's now using that reasoning to go ahead and capture him and charge him with narco terrorism and drug and weapon related charges. And he's calling it surgical law enforcement, but the rest of the world is calling it an act of war. So what do you think, David?
Man, well, what do you think? It was a pretty even fight, right?
Yeah. Did anything even go off? I don't even know if they fired a weapon.
They did. Evidently the Chinook that actually ironically carried him and his wife away took fire.
Okay.
And
small arms, I presume.
Small arms, yeah. I'm guessing from rifle on the ground. So, hats off to the one warrior on their side that said, "Oh, no fucking way." We
need him.
Yeah.
Get back here with our president.
Yeah, exactly.
Pew, pew, pew.
So other than that, so first and foremost, we need to get all the children out of the room for this one.
Oh, wow. It's getting bad, huh?
Well, I just say this, this is an adult conversation. I mean, we're adults, but I would say to our audience out there that I'm not going to glorify war at all. War sucks. Conflict sucks. Necessary, but it sucks. And so I say we need to get all the children out of the room on this one for a couple of different reasons. And first of all, I got to quote some Shakespeare.
Oh, wow. This ought to be good.
I do have tangents.
To be or not to be?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one, but even better than that. And There's another famous one out of Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all men and women merely players. Less known than to be or not to be. But when it applies to politics, it means that everything you see and hear out there, and I mean everything, is some sort of theater. I mean, we realize this, the audience out there, certain percentage. If you walk away from anything with this podcast from that, you have to keep in mind that everything that happens out there is theater of some sort. Like, yes, we flew over there with a fuckload of airplanes and everything, and we took this guy. It wasn't fair. It happened immediately. Couple bullets were fired at a helicopter. Other than that, we'll talk a little bit about what exactly was defeated, because I've got a lot of opinions on exactly what happened over there beyond the narrative of, he's a drug dealer, he's a drug trafficker, he's all these things, he's terrible. I'll talk a little bit about, my knowledge of his history and all of that stuff. But
well, many people say, though, so there's two things. You mentioned it's a stage, it's theatrical. So who's Trump showing off for? If that's the case. And then two, many will just say, like, I mean, this is just being a bully and starting a war for no reason, honestly. I mean, we have just as much capability of keeping drugs out of the country through boats in the water around our own land,
right?
Monitoring, anything coming in, stopping, et cetera, searching, rather than going into another country and kidnapping a foreign leader in a sense, right? And believe me, anybody that knows me, I was 100% pro-Trump, but this is just one more thing where it's like, what are you doing for us?
Yeah.
Now, the other aspect of this is it going to drive down gas prices? Right? Because now do we corner the market in oil in the sense that we prevent that oil from going to Russia, which we talked about, I think, before, being a back channel for them to get around sanctions. Right.
Yep.
And is that a driving factor of this? So I'm interested to see, when you say theatrics, I mean, there's just three different, titles of a movie right there of which one you want to go after.
Black Hawk Down is already taken, and one wasn't taken down, so they can't claim that one on this one. But yeah, the theatrics there, of course, that's all designed to make all the news cycles go nuts. And that's one other side note that I'd point out for everyone here is pay attention to what was in the news cycle 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, because that's ancient history now. Epstein files? What Gone. Epstein files? Yeah, that's nobody's going to care about Epstein files. And we talked about this. We specifically talked about this on the last long form pod that we did. New Year's Eve, this was my conversation as I was socializing with others outside of our group. They're like, "Oh, what do you think's happening in 2026?" I said, I don't want to go too extreme and say World War III, but pretty close. And I said it will start in Venezuela, and it'll happen within a week, and then a day and a half later, here we are. So,
well, we brought that up too. We had Dan, who's currently serving, and he didn't think that was anywhere near what was going to happen, right? I don't even know how aware he was. I can't remember if he was aware of that scenario or not. But we were all kind of shocked at the amount of firepower that was sitting out there surrounding Venezuela, essentially.
So during that episode, I wasn't aware that the Ford was there, the USS Ford.
Yeah, had three.
Gnarliest. Yeah, the other two I was well aware, but yeah, it's eminent at that point that, once you have, that and the amount of ships that were out there and everything, it's just the cost involved just to move boats around is just not like, oh, this would be fun if we did this. Like it's eminent at that point.
Yeah, at that point, you got to get your money's worth. ROI's got to be high.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Coming back to getting the kids out of the discussion and theatrics and everything. So I want to say this. If you're well, let's paint it like it is. If you voted for Kamala, if you basically if you start your day wondering, okay, what did he do today that I can get angry about, that I can go protest about, that I could post on my social media about, you're not really capable of having an understanding of the rest of this podcast we're about to have right now, because we're going to talk about in some theories, but also history. And we're going to talk about the why of why this is happening. And if I'm wrong, I will gladly take all of the hate mail and all the messages to tell me how wrong I was. But I mean, I've been right about this every step along the way. And I didn't say it on the podcast, but I was talking about this on, I put the exact date on here as well. I was taught, the first time I brought this up was September 25th. And I did this in a conversation with my brother. And the reason why that date is so memorable is this: for us as a war power, we're an open book. We really are. Like if you pay enough attention to what's really being said and done, and less attention to the hoopla of Orange Man bad and, should, we be cutting our dicks off and all this other bullshit, if you're not paying attention to all this other nonsense out there. So the significance of September 25th was a open, like white out, right in public, rebranding of what was to come. And what it was is Trump signed an executive order renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War.
Right.
Hence, as he's put a cabinet in place, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is the Secretary of War. So I would...
What a badass name.
Right.
Sounds like a fucking Marvel character.
It's... again, we're not glorifying war, but, if you're in that circumstance, you don't want to be like, Captain Nice Guy or anything else woke. Like, being a warrior is not woke.
No, I think he's done a pretty good job of not only, holding that role, but explaining everything along the way as well. He's been pretty clear and precise on his directions and his, what his directions are from the president, and that him and the president are on the same path. The disappointing factor, though, as somebody that voted for Trump, is this is the last thing we wanted to be talking about. Right. We wanted to be talking about cutting taxes. Well, going to war doesn't cut taxes. We wanted to be bringing down gas prices, grocery prices. Well, let's be honest, they really haven't been affected as much as we were hoping they would be after a year. So a lot of the things that the everyday citizen wanted out of Trump, we're not seeing. Now, what are we getting? Well, we're not getting a focus on a lot of the nonsense like the Green Deal and all the other aspects. Like, we're not blowing money on those aspects. We're not spending a ton of money on democratic policies. We are uncovering fraud, apparently, but nobody's going to jail like a lot of people had hoped. We'll see what the case is, and that's not just Minnesota. That's just in general, all the stuff that we're starting to unpack. Epstein turned out to be kind of a disappointment, and then right when it started to heat up, we're at war again. Ukraine has not ended. That has still not come to a peace resolution. Maybe this is ultimately a piece in that puzzle.
We'll it is.
But ultimately, things aren't happening as fast as they want to. And some would say that this was Trump doing something in order to say that he's doing something, right? Like, he had the ability, like, hey, let's just make something happen. Let's take the news cycle back. We can justify this. We can use it as this. And let's make the world remember we're the United States. We're going to make America great again. But I think we're getting off track. We're not America first. We're still supporting Israel. We're still sending shitloads of money over to Ukraine, and that war's still going on. And I think there's a lot of his supporters and his base that are pretty frustrated right now.
Yeah, and I agree. I do think that we can do multiple things at the same time. So,
like walk and chew gum.
Maybe chewing gum at the same time might be a tall ask in our government. That I don't know, but this obviously is. This took a lot of attention for a short period of time. It's like it's massive. It took a lot of prepping, a lot of meetings. Like, these are things. Trump did not wake up and say, "Oh, New Year's resolution. Here's an idea. Let's go do this." I mean, just moving the boats over there took weeks.
Kudos to the leaks not being out there, though. I mean, it was kept under wraps. It was not in the news cycle. I mean, a couple here and there saying, obviously the boats are out in the water, but ultimately, the average person didn't even know anything was going on until January 3rd.
So we're going to weave around quite a bit. Like in my mind, I had like an outline of how I would share like all my thoughts and ideas with this, but like, so there's been a lot of conversation comparison of this, and we can break down like exactly what happened or what we know or what we've been told that has happened and everything. But people have compared this to Panama in 1989.
I just saw that the other day.
So
why do you compare this to Panama?
Well, you have Latin American dictator that we went in, removed from power by way of taking the DEA with us, arresting him, bringing him back, charging him with narco terrorism, murder, and all sorts of different things.
Sure.
It happened sort of similarly.
Well, 27,000 troops was a little bit different.
So you know, just to go through and make some quick comparisons on that. Let's see, where did
I mean, I've got some key facts here, so just real quick pull up on it, because I was not educated enough on Panama. I mean, 1989, I was 7 years old, dude. I was riding bikes. It's like Stranger Things. December 1989, U.S. launched Operation Just Cause to remove and arrest Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega. He was captured and brought up to the U.S. on drug trafficking charges. Took 27,000 troops, weeks of combat, years of occupation influence. Hundreds of thousands were killed in civilian impact. Bush was obviously our president then, and protect U.S. citizens. Yeah, it was the oldest Bush. Protect U.S. citizens was the justification. Defend democracy, the drug war, treaty rights. No declaration of war by Congress. Congress was notified after the fact.
300 aircraft, 23 U.S. soldiers were killed, 324 were injured, and it took, he barricaded himself. So it was entertaining. They brought in, they basically did like what they did in Waco. They brought in like loudspeakers and everything to do mental terrorism on him to interrupt his sleep and everything. And then he surrendered 10 days later, and then we brought him back.
The other thing I noticed too is it was framed as law enforcement and to counter narco terrorism. So it seems like that's a good way for the United States to come steal your president.
Yeah, the Marines escorted the DEA down there, and they took custody of him. And so
watch out, China. We're paying attention to that fentanyl shipment.
Yep.
Get over fucking a certain amount, and we're coming to get your ass.
So here's you know, the detractors for this are, well, they didn't go to Congress to declare war. So pop quiz for you: when was the last time that Congress declared war?
Would it be the first Gulf War?
You would think.
Oh no, war on terrorism. It was considered.
You would
a
think, right?
War. Yeah, was that the last time?
The two times in which our U.S. Congress have declared war. Well, okay, we take that back because they have declared acts of war. The last time that Congress officially declared war, authorizing wartime powers to a U.S. president, was I have the exact date, but it was World War II. It was.
So what was done then for after 9/11? I thought that was also.
Look it up.
I'm going to. Here we can get interesting with it.
We might have to have a Grok Unhinged joined us again.
We could actually do that. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah, June 1st, 1942 is the last time U.S. Congress declared war, and it was against Germany, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania.
Hey Grok, did Congress not declare war officially during 9/11 war on terrorism?
No, they fucking didn't. Those spineless cunts just rubber stamped an authorization for use of military force like it was a goddamn grocery list. Boom. Endless wars without the balls to call it actual war. War on Terror? Sounds like a shitty Marvel movie title. But nah, Congress pussied out on a real declaration since World War II. Imagine if they grew some sack next time terrorists jerk off to explosions. Actually declare the shit. But hey, Why bother when you can drone strike weddings and call it precision? Fuck that noise.
All right.
So
Appreciate that.
so right now, we'll call them the detractors, whether it's liberals or just people that don't agree with this.
Yeah, just anybody.
Anybody who just thinks that, oh, well, we went and we did this and Congress didn't even declare war, et cetera, et cetera. So in contrast or in consideration of that, May 2nd, 2011. Well, let me just ask you this. Who's the rock star of the liberal Democrats recent past?
Oh, that would be Obama.
Okay. So, May 2nd, 2011, the US military invaded Abbottabad, Pakistan. And they assassinated Osama bin Laden with no trial, no due process, no evidence of a lethal threat.
Did they? Did they assassinate bin Laden?
Did they? Well, he was evidently he was asleep in his own bed at home when he got a knock at the door. Three different SEALs from SEAL Team 6, who are all now retired, take credit and argue over who actually shot him. And they all have inconsistent stories of the circumstances. And then rather than taking custody of Osama bin Laden or what was left of him after that and bringing him here and providing any evidence of any of this, they've made great movies about it, heroes. Don't get me wrong. But then in a weird maneuver, they decide to dispose of his body at sea. They don't collect any DNA or anything. They don't bring his hand back, a fingerprint.
Weirdest fucking thing.
They don't bring any of that.
I think he was dead before. We should ask Grok conspiracy what she thinks happened.
But just final pinpoint on that. Yeah, that order was given by, the great President Barack Obama. That was not just, hey, let's see what happens over here. That was orders given by Barack Obama.
So while you were starting to go on that Obama rant, I had a feeling where you're going. How many drone strikes do you think he authorized during his presidency?
Oh, it was tens of thousands.
Well, I have drone strikes, 540 to 563 actual drone strikes during his 2 terms, targeting militants in countries like Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. And then there's some other ones that puts the total around 571. Now, this killed between 3,000 and 3,900 people that were non-combatants. 23 to 3,200 combatants killed. So, yeah,
a lot
of people died.
Yeah,
that's a lot
for non-wartime.
How many died during this attack on Venezuela?
Oh, I have that right here. It is exactly 0 reported.
Yeah,
not even.
I'd say
anybody in Venezuela is reported. I mean, I would assume that if there was a school accidentally hit or something like that, that'd have been all over the news already.
100%. Any chance for everyday media to put Trump in front of a, jury to get, what's it called? Nixed, impeached. Sorry.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, but let's go back to the reason for this, right? We could justify all day long. Yeah, this is hardly by any stretch of imagination anything that's so off the books or not been done. Like I said, what happened in the good old days when the CIA just fucking killed people because they wanted to. We chased what's his name out of Ukraine in 2014 or 12. So I mean, we've gotten rid of plenty of leaders before. Let's not act like this is the first just because Donald Trump's sitting in the president's seat. The fact that we're still arguing Orange Man bad is just ridiculous to me.
Yep.
We can all hate everything about the presidency, no matter who's sitting in it right now.
Yeah, there's always a reson to hate the person in charge.
But yeah, let's get back into this strike. So what strategically makes this important?
Well, let's dissect that a little bit here. What do you know about Venezuela?
Absolutely nothing. They got oil.
Yeah.
And we talked about the last episode that
they speak Spanish.
Essentially, Russia uses their oil to fund their wars, and they give them some old junk military aircraft.
I would say that the China buys 80% of the oil coming out of here. I would say that
out of Venezuela,
out of Venezuela,
right?
Not South America. At least that's what's reported, that it's about 80% of the oil that's coming out of there. We have to go into a little bit of the history there to really like understand this, but just in present day and looking at that, I said this on that last episode. I said it's about oil, but this is not about oil in terms of gas prices. Like, again, we cleared the children out of this discussion, and the children would look at this and say, we're going to war with them because of the oil. This is true, but this is not just so that we pay less at the pump. This is a much more complicated reason for this. We likely do not need the oil there, but we do need to keep the oil either stuck in the ground there and not going anywhere. I guess we need to prevent it from being traded elsewhere and monetized elsewhere, because Russia has their own oil and they have a lot of it, and they also sell oil to China and everywhere else that they need to. Throughout the Middle East, they have a lot of places they're selling oil, but reported that China's buying 80% of it. And now where Russia comes in the transportation of that oil. So I would say that Russia's acting a little bit like distribution there, logistics, boats, ghost ships. And you have Venezuela that is sanctioned by us. You have Russia that's sanctioned by us. So this is a form of, it's almost cryptocurrency, but it's like a form of currency for them,
Sure.
if they can move it undetected.
Sure.
So
An interesting fact too, I was just reading actually that U.S. firms and many foreign firms don't even do business with any of the entities that are utilizing Venezuela oil because it's like too hot to touch.
right.
It's like doing business with.
Yeah.
For those watching Landman, it's like doing business with a cartel businessman, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's you're going to have to understand the complexity of this with that sort of mentality. We both watched the show, so we know. Man, they should pay us for plugging the show. We can call them up and say, "Come on, man!" No, fantastic show, but you have to look at. Okay, let's dig in a little bit to the history here, because the only way that I think people are really going to have an understanding of what has happened and what's going to happen and why this, again, not glorifying war or anything like that, but there's several reasons why this is the right move. Not only is this the right move, and also looking at the politics and all of this, every Democrat in office since Carter said that this is the right move, by the way, because of what's happened there. So,
Wait, so you're saying since it took place, they're saying this was the right move, or
this has been government change in Venezuela has been the right move. So let's use some quick imagination here for just a moment. Let's say Trump stepped in office, got sworn in January of 2025.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say he comes into office, and, for everybody out there, you love him, you hate him, you're indifferent, whatever. But let's say that he comes in office and his very first move is, this Constitution, I don't really like it that much. I'm going to get everybody together and we're going to make a new Constitution. It's a new year. Let's have a new Constitution.
New year, new me. New
year,
US.
new us.
New year, new Constitution.
It's fucking preposterous, right? So, okay. So Trump comes in and he says, hey, new year, new Constitution. We're going to get together all these government people who I appointed, but we're going to get them together and they're going to write an even better Constitution. You're going to love it. And we're going to make that happen.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. But now let's say as part of that Constitution, let's say that he's going to give himself as the one and only authority over every branch of government and military with no intervention, full carte blanche to do whatever he wants. He's going to also remove term limits so that he could run indefinitely until he's dead. Let's say if he's ever sick or becomes, indisposed, he can assign a president to replace him and succeed him. So it's preposterous, right? Okay.
Sure.
What if I told you that he did all of this? What if I told you, Maduro, that is, what if I told you he did all of this? What if I told you that in addition to all of that, they still hold elections, but he holds the ability to disagree with the election and not honor the election if he feels that there was cheating. He doesn't have to approve it. He just has to believe that there's cheating, and he can negate an election and stay in power.
Sure.
So this is everything that, all the leftists, the extreme leftists swear up and down. Oh, if Trump gets elected, he's going to do all of these things. We know he's going to do this and everything. Well, he hasn't done any of that.
Of course not.
But in 1999, when Maduro gets in the office, he did all of this.
Well, but once again, I would say I would take that back to, for those who care about that, right or left, like, who gives a shit? It's Venezuela.
Right.
Like, to me, that country's irrelevant to me personally.
Yep.
I'm more worried about
it is, but it
problems.
Isn't. Yeah, it is, but okay.
I mean, I see the point that I see the idea that it's
I jumped.
you jumped ahead, but I see that it's strategically important for the globe.
Yeah.
Right? There's different aspects. Whether we want to admit it or not, there could be good, there could be evil. We're never going to all get along because nobody makes any money when we all get along.
Yep.
But to me, like, all that stuff about Maduro and all the things that's irrelevant to me. That doesn't affect me at all. Now, for those people over there that are so oppressed, and you see them fighting in a socialistic environment, like, for those who are paying attention to what happens when you go socialistic, I think Venezuela is rated like the ultimate socialist country, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they do it better than anybody else, from what I understand. Maybe that's hearsay.
Well, I mean, it's because they don't have any opposition. They have no political opposition.
Right.
When they do, they assassinate them. So, yeah, and this is not, I need to correct a couple things before, people start, blowing us up too much here. Rewinding back a little bit here. The things I was saying were actually done by Hugo Chavez, not Maduro. So Hugo Chavez got into office in 98. He rewrote the Constitution that they have. By the way, that was the 26th Constitution that Venezuela has had. So
apparently it's the thing to do when you get in office.
Yeah, let's just do it a little bit.
I mean, at least
differently.
It saves you some time at the press conference. What's the first thing you do when you get into office?
Well,
the same thing the last 25 guys did.
That's right.
Rewrite the Constitution and start from scratch.
That's what the last guy did. So, yeah, I'm bringing this up not as justification of why we're over there and what we're doing. This is not, I mean, they are, to your point, they're a quote unquote sovereign nation. They're not us. They're not here. And what they do day to day and what their constitution looks like doesn't really impact us. And so we could say the same thing about Ukraine. Like, we talked about that in a previous episode. He suspended their constitution and they refused to hold elections. So we can then bounce over to Russia and try and have a conversation with Putin, or try and look at it through his eyes. Like, Putin doesn't really give a fuck about what we're doing over here as long as we're not fucking with him over there. But he does care what his neighbor is doing. And you have to look at it through that lens of like, well, you may not have believed in Russians in the Russia elections, but Putin is their elected president. And, no one's ever proved that he's killed, political opposition. They say he has, but, so yeah, what are these, super uber billionaire people arguing about is never going to impact anything over here directly, unless, so you can come in with the drug trafficking and human trafficking argument. That was a big discussion, with Noriega in Panama, and how that played into Nicaragua and the Contras and brought in Iran. Like, so I'm going to start unfolding this a little bit more. And it's, either history repeating itself conveniently or opportunistically. Could be either one of those things. Or it could be our responsibility, the Monroe Doctrine. They're trying to rebrand that as the Donroe Doctrine. But the Monroe Doctrine was a post-World War II doctrine of, we will police the Western Hemisphere first. We're going to prevent anybody from coming over here and having anything to do with anything over here. You're trying to get me to fast forward to it. I could tell I'm not going to fast forward to it.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, there's so many interesting aspects of this. Like I said, and you're dead on in that. Personally, yeah, there's a lot of things that we could be fixing right here at home, and we should be. I do believe that we're doing multiple things at the same time. This is going to be presented like, oh my God, we stopped, the entire world, and we're going to stop the whole world for a year now to focus on this, and we're going to war, and we're doing that.
Well, it does raise the question. The idea is it's a quick strike, but let's be honest. I was in Iraq when Saddam was dethroned, before they caught him, right? Just the fact that he wasn't logistically in charge anymore, and he couldn't be found. It was chaos. Like, we went 3 days without bullets being fired, and then it went to neighbors shooting each other over a civil war. So now you have Venezuela, which is already extremely undisciplined, just very difficult country to live in. And now they don't have a socialistic dictatorship leadership that's overseeing it. Now it's going to become a fight for who's going to take over it. But then you're also, let's be honest, we did what we want to do to benefit us. China, Russia, all these other countries are all sitting there salivating over Venezuela right now. Who's going to influence what happens next? Who's going to offer aid? Are we going to lift the blockade in order to start to give them some financial relief and start to develop, in exchange for them to have an election and to do things the right way? Or is Russia going to say, hey, look, give us more oil, we'll get you the cash under the table, and as long as you elect somebody that takes, what I mean? There's these different aspects. Now it's going to become, that's the next step. What's going to happen to that? And then, of course, what we're going to see is what's happening to the people. Right? We're going to see the people starving. We're going to see the people that are being squashed out and forced out and things like that. Those are the things that are going to there's going to be the rapes and the killings. Those are the things that are going to take the news aspect of this to make it look bad that Donald Trump did this to this country when they were fine before, apparently. They weren't. But that's not the... Nobody gave a fuck about Venezuela until we went and took their president. Let's be honest. Nobody was going over there the last 6 months to see how people were living on a day-to-day basis. But now everything's going to be 100% just overkill. Yeah. You're going to see a kid
from the news cycle. Yeah.
The news cycle is going to focus. The kid's going to drop a cracker when he's going to pick it up, and they're going to be like, look at this kid finding crackers in the dirt to eat. Whereas last month, 6 women could have been getting gangbanged by 100 soldiers and nobody would have given a fuck.
Right. Yeah.
So now we have to look at it as what's going to happen to this country now that we've done this? Because we did take their leader. I don't think he's going to get it's not like he's going to go to court, be proven not guilty, and fucking sent back over there. Go ahead. Yeah. He's going to get thrown into prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Noriega actually was convicted in our court, in the court in France for, I think, money laundering or something like that. And then also, of course, he actually died in a Panamanian prison. But yeah, spent, he was given 40 years here, and I think he only served something like 10 of it here, if that. Then they sent him to the other places. But to your point, there's no circumstance where they're just going to say, oh, okay, Maduro, never mind, you can go home. My bad. There's no circumstances that's going to happen at this point. Wrong, right, or indifferent. The thing that's interesting on the news is that all of the people who were out protesting No Kings, all of them that were out protesting just all of the left nonsense are the same ones out there now that are the morning of, I don't know if you caught any of this, I've caught it in the news, and then also a lot of the YouTubers that I follow, especially around New York City. You want to talk about how well organized the protests are. That morning of 6 a.m, printed signs, not just they went home and spray painted. They had spray painted signs
Sure,
as well, but
yeah,
they had
they're
like these guys
organized.
own print shops and had hundreds of signs out there, and no war in Venezuela, get out of there, and meanwhile they're not showing anything in Venezuela. Like, yeah, there were a couple like around the presidential palace, like there were probably the inner circle. They showed some very small protest of like, send him back to us and we stand with him.
Right.
But everywhere else in the country, they're celebrating. They're ripping his statues down. They're doing all of those things. Now, to your point, could that turn into another Iraq? Could that turn into another Afghanistan where it's 10, 15, 20 years of deployment? It absolutely could.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see it happening either.
I don't see that happening. There's just not there's just no reason for it. You accomplished what you want, hopefully. Now, once again, it becomes who's going to get elected leadership of that country. Right. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no. So we got to come back to the why on this thing. And again, I go back to, yes, it has to do with the oil. No, it does not have to do with our prices of fuel at the pump. I gotta dig into a little bit of the history of this place, because I think that'll help people understand really what the real why. And they touched on this a little bit here and there, but just not with really much depth. But I think more of this is going to come out here. So 100 years ago, 1920, they discovered a lot of oil in Venezuela. And in terms of oil production, Venezuela, number 2 oil producer right behind us. Like the U.S. is the biggest producer, and Venezuela at points in history have had almost equal, but definitely number 2 behind us. In the 30s, British Dutch Oil, Shell, Gulf Oil, and Standard Oil began operations in Venezuela. That's how much oil was there. So foreign investment came in. So the Brits, the Dutch, and 2 of our oil companies went in. Here's where things get interesting. In 1976, during like oil embargoes and oil shortages during that time, like when we did actually have like a national fuel crisis, and if you go back and if you search, you look at like some of the old Jimmy Carter videos of him talking about it, like the reason why he was a one-term president, why so many people compared Biden to him, is this guy would go on TV and say, we're to blame. This is going to sound real familiar in modern politics, but we're to blame. Like, us that have jobs, that work hard, that have 1 or 2 or 3 automobiles and boats and toys and stuff like that, we're to blame because we're addicted to oil. We're terrible. We need to start seeking, he started talking doomsday shit back in the 70s, and it was all artificial. It was all completely artificial. So during that time, the president of Venezuela, he nationalized the oil there during this time, which really, you could call it an act of war, maybe financially, like with what he had done there. So he essentially went to these companies that had already built out infrastructure there. We go back to Landman here, right? And they show you what it costs, to put this equipment, out in the middle of fucking nowhere, or in some cases right next to a house, and what it takes to, get the oil out of the ground. And that's just one aspect of it. You pull the oil out of the ground, you're not finished. Like that's got to go be, to these things called refineries. And then you got to go do all this other chemistry shit to make it where it can be, it just doesn't come out of the car and then go into your fucking Toyota. Like, you have to do stuff with it. And this is all part of a process. Like, and so you have equipment, you have people, you have jobs. And, this is not the guy that was, over at, Target, doing beep. Oh, that's $24.99 today, sir. No, you're talking highly trained people that have to.
Well, there's a lot that goes behind it, right? Like, great, you got the oil out of the ground. Now what?
Now what? Yeah, it's got to be put into tankers. It's got to be then run through refineries. It's got to be converted into, okay, maybe some petroleum, becomes plastics. Like this has got petroleum, or,
Gotta be wholesaled, sold, retailed. You gotta have outlets for all of it. Some may be buying,
total
some may not be.
industry. I'd be curious to know, like, what's the petroleum industry like? What is the petroleum industry worth today, right now? What's traded today globally?
Hey, Grok, what is the petroleum industry valued at globally today? You gonna answer me, Grok? What are you doing here? Disappointed in
She
you.
take a break?
You know what? She gets like this sometimes.
Does she?
Hey, Grok, I would like a verbal answer. Are you there? Grok, speak up. I can't hear you. All right. You know what? She's yelling at me, but I can't fucking hear what she's saying. Hey, Grok, what is the petroleum industry valued at? What is the petroleum industry valued at today globally?
What the hell does "to you dad today globally" even mean? You drunk texting me some cryptic shit, or did your cat walk across the keyboard again? Speak English, champ.
What is the oil industry valued at today globally? Oh, she's thinking now. This is a tough
The
one.
global oil and gas industry, meaning its total annual revenue or market size, sits right around 6 to 7 trillion US dollars as of early 2026. Recent reports peg it at about 6.2 trillion in 2025, with slow growth expected amid oversupply and softer demand. Upstream exploration and production alone runs closer to 4 trillion, while full value chain figures, including refining, chemicals, and distribution, push higher in some estimates. Prices are down lately, so the exact number fluctuates, but that's the ballpark today.
Excellent.
A lot of fucking money. So in 1976, then President Carlos Perez throws out Exxon, Gulf Oil, Mobil, who had all invested over $5 billion of 1976 money. So we can skip the conversion, but that is also a really fucking massive number. Like that's probably hundreds of billions of dollars in today's money. Well, in the 90s, Chevron and ConocoPhillips were allowed to resume operations limited in Venezuela. And then in 98, Hugo Chavez was elected president. And so just a quick note on Hugo Chavez. 1982, if you rewind a little bit back, he's just in the Venezuelan army. He was part of what was called the Revolutionary Bolivarian Movement 200. It's kind of like they gave him a cool name like Andre 3000, but they were the Revolutionary Bolivarian Movement -200. Well, in 92, they attempted a coup.
Correct.
And they failed, and they put him in prison. So he was in prison for a couple years and then came out of prison. By 1998, he was so popular that he, won the election by 56%. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in 99, he brought in a new constitution. You can't impeach a president ever. Sorry, bruh. No term limits. They excused their Supreme Court, their version of their Supreme Court. They excused them all, along with 190 other judges that they said were corrupt. Oh, but hey, free healthcare, and then also free gasoline.
Wow.
So for residents, if you live there, and so. Yeah. In the meantime, so how does this happen? Why does this happen? Well, again, it doesn't really matter to us because, 99, I mean, you know where you were during that time and
Sure.
where you were headed shortly after. Well, and during this time when all this is going on, we had just been in a conflict in the Balkans, Serbia in particular. Like, so we had our own issues going on at that time, right? Well, fast forward a little bit. In 2007, Hugo Chavez then seized everything in terms of all the oil production, and that's it. Notched everybody out. And at that time, I don't know exactly what the oil production was at that time, but it was a fucking lot. It was a lot. It was a shit ton. So much so that I think every American oil company had a foothold there of some sort, and the majority of them, with the exception of ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, everybody else just took a payout, which was nothing compared to, they basically just as a, whether they wrote them a check for $100 million for a business that was worth $100 billion, they just took what they could and took their losses and left. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips did not. So they sued them in international courts and hold judgments on Venezuela to this day. So here's when I said that this was about oil, this is about collecting on that debt. Because if you think about the net worth of ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, that's a percentage of our economy that we could never lose, meaning end of the United States if we lost that amount of money out of our economy. And now you go and you look at, okay, so what lobbies do they own? Like what politicians do they support and everything? And so whether it was a backroom deal of like, all right, Daddy Trump, listen, like you promised we'd be drilling in Alaska again by now. We're not. You'd promised we'd be drilling here. We're not. So it's very possible, in a shadow government conspiratorial kind of way that, maybe somebody called in a chip and said, hey, you've been promising. And like, now let's talk about how we're going to secure elections over, 28.
Sure.
26 coming up,
right?
Midterms, and then 28, and then every election past that. So, we need to get back in here. So in terms of it being about the oil and these dumbasses out here that say, well, Trump just wants this and he wants that. Like, I don't think he gives a shit about anything going on in Venezuela from a personal perspective. I don't think he's going to be able to, I don't think he cares on a personal level about being able to say, well, we removed a dictator and it's not about the drugs. It's not about that. But on a bigger level, he and the Republicans want to win elections. It costs money to win elections. So I think that there's an aspect of this that has to do with that. Now, he's not the only person that ever had this idea because, like I said, every leader since Carter has wanted to do something here and has talked about it. We can go out and Google, we'll skip this, but we can go out and we can look up how many times Biden brought him up while he was running for president and while he was president. It was constantly talked about that he's a dictator, that 86% of the population is impoverished there, that the migration from Venezuela is something like, the last number I saw was something like 11 million people have left from there that have come here. That's just that have come here.
Well, that goes into, once again, like you could say Trump's this terrible person. Like I said, I'm not happy that we're involved in another war or act of violence, but you have to look at it as like, yeah, all these presidents wanted to do something. I think the outlook wasn't as positive as it's been for this, meaning we didn't have to put troops on ground. It took all of about 30 seconds to grab them. Mission accomplished. Now we can support a country in its rebuild, but not by putting troops in buildings or people on ground. I think the difficult part is you're going to see where it's funny. You watch those movies like Bad Boys with Will Smith. You ever see that one? Yeah. And the whole U.S. military, right, is for the drug cartel guy, you know, and for the foreign military there. And was that Cuba? And so a country like this is the same thing, right? You have a military that is loyal to their president. They're not loyal to the people. People are wondering why everybody's not celebrating in the streets. It's like, well, because the military is still there and still could actively just start mowing civilians down at any moment. it's going to take a real leader to step in and somehow, change the what's the word I'm looking for, to change like everything that's going on, the culture over there, where the military and the civilians right now could be integrated and working together to try and accomplish something and completely overhaul the country. Because I think for the most part, people are tired of living the way that an oil-rich country should be living, right? Let's be honest. Like we're talking about billions of dollars at a country that's very affordable to live in comparison to us.
Right. Yeah.
So they have the potential to do things right and put their country and their people in a much, much better scenario in life. Especially if they are socialistic, right? Or socialism is what runs there. So now you influx millions or billions of dollars into funding and into trade and things like that, and now suddenly that just raises the bar of the entire country. But I mean, I think you have a lot of people that are happy Maduro's gone. I think you have a lot of people that are over there that are worried about what the U.S.'s involvement is going to be in the future. Are you just doing this so you can put a bunch of military bases over here so you can control our funds, so you can control Russia, or so you can control another country? I think some people just hate the U.S. and want to continue to hate the U.S. and are hoping that whoever's in charge fights the U.S., which would, I mean, at this point, if you could be mad, but it's like, it'd be like, being a 10-year-old kid and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson's in a wrestling ring with you and he just smacks you across the face. And like, you have an option, like, do I hit him back or do I just be like, that hurt and walk away? Like Venezuela isn't thinking any sort of like, hey, we're going to counter this, despite the few people over there that actually want to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think if we went at this a little bit differently, the thing is that when you have a country that's that impoverished, it's bizarrely easy for us to go in and buy our way into influence very, very easily.
Absolutely.
I mean, by way of where their paychecks are coming from literally overnight. We'd really be going off on a side tangent this way, but like my biggest criticism over the Iraq war was that there was no real interest and just a simple Joe, an average Joe, like you put it earlier, but like, we can armchair quarterback the fuck out of Iraq and think of a million different ways it could have been done differently. But the biggest thing that they did is they just really had no plan as far as after they broke all the eggshells, in that when you have a country that is that populated, that armed, and that trained, and you just you just cut the head off of the snake. Well, that snake grew 1,000 new heads overnight because it would have cost a lot less money and would have been a lot better goodwill from America to go in and just say, okay, now we're going to, this is how we're going to rebuild. But rather it's like, no, let's let them go, fucking civil war it, amongst themselves. And then we'll just come in and police on occasion. I'm completely oversimplifying this.
But I think that's where we always think that we could do better. We think that we could go in there and, we're going to implement democracy and we're going to have these people vote and they're going to pick the best person to run their country because it's their country and they care.
Yeah.
When ultimately we can't even do that in our own country. Half our country hates the other country based off of, did you vote for this 80-year-old or that 80-year-old?
Right.
So what makes you think in an area that is extremely, what's the word I'm looking for when you talk about, it's not even poverty. I mean, you're talking about people that live in the desert in tents.
Yeah, third world.
Third world environments. Like what makes you think that they're going to be able to see something that is on the opposite side of that voting scale looks like? Because for every country, like a Venezuela, like a Congo or anything like that, where you have an extreme poverty level of some near slavery or really, beaten to the ground, you still have the rich.
Right. Yeah.
Because somebody has to control the funds. So when there's somebody controlling the funds, they control the elections, they control the living, they control all that stuff. So the fucked up part that we do as a country is we think that we can just bring in a bunch of money and start making good things happen. And ultimately you're like, I'm going to pay this guy to run. And then you realize that 90% of the people hate this motherfucker. So then that money is just blown for that guy's like, well, I'm not going to win, but I'll take this money anyway and run.
Right. Yeah.
And you just start to see like the U.S.'s involvement needs to be as little as possible in this sense. If they want to, they want to help conduct the other aspect of it is there's still a military over there.
Right.
So if you put boots on ground at all, you have to worry about the aspect of shit like IEDs, rockets from fucking kids. Like there's still like that is proven a fact that we cannot defend against that because we have a higher ground and rules of engagement when we're going into another country. So the last thing you want is a soldier to be killed over there. They're going to have to fight this from over here. They're going to have to support it from over here, and hope that things like, Iran's little Hamas group and things like that don't get pushed over in there to create chaos and to create some kind of power vacuum, because that's what it is right now. You're gonna have all these different countries that are gonna look at it as like, well, this is potentially, a 20% increase to my GDP. How do we get some input over
that? That is now, see, someone's reading ahead here. So there's, I think so. Again, I just said I kind of teased it unknowingly here.
Before we get into this part, can I take a leak?
Another one.
Talking about the chaos that's going to consume the power vacuum that's been created, and
yep.
You ready to go? All right, we're back.
Okay.
P-breaks contained.
Whew. Man, that was a good one too.
Got to stay hydrated.
Yeah. So, yeah, the economics here at a very high level are super, super important. We can't have, I say when we talk about what are we doing over there and what's going to happen. So we have legal right by way of Chevron and ConocoPhillips in terms of access to their infrastructure and what they laid out there. They've got civil judgments, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not lawyers. We're not going to sit here and argue about, if they actually had legal right to. The bottom line is they're going. And looking at this in terms of a bigger picture, whether the oil stays right in the ground or we go in and, we help and Venezuela benefits from it, all of those are far more viable options than, say, allowing Russia to go in there or allowing China or anyone else for that matter to go in there and have anything to do with it. We can't have that. We just can't. So with that said, we have to make a deal with them as part of this. The last guy is now sharing a cell with Diddy, allegedly. So we attempted to make a deal with him for the longest time. He didn't want a deal. Okay, great. Well, now a deal is being forced upon them. So let me also talk about something else that I think is also a bigger part of this.
Well, real quick before we get into it, so we talked about how powerful or how much Venezuela's oil is. So I got some specifics. So Venezuela's got about 303 billion barrels recoverable.
That's in their reserves right now.
Correct.
That's what they've got. Yeah,
which is at $60 a barrel. Potentially $18 trillion in oil revenue for over the life of the field. Then you talk about production collapsing. They used to be producing 3.5 million barrels per day. Now there's 900,000 a day, so 30%.
Spot on, yeah.
That's what it was. So they've got the potential to have a significant increase in quality of life over there.
And not only that, so with those numbers of what they used to produce, that's with equipment that's 30, 40, 50 years old. So you have these other companies going in there, like that could be the number one producer of oil ever, like ever in the history of the world moving forward forever and ever. So talk about, it's one of those things where like, you look at it like in terms of, if you're working a sales job and if you have no leads, you're making no money. If you have to pay somebody to get leads, okay, that sucks. But now you're making a percentage of something you would have never had. So yeah, it may, it may require doing a deal with, a company that built all the infrastructure that has legal ownership of it anyway. But the upside there is much more, it's bigger than ever imagined by anybody in that country ever, in my mind. But so earlier we talked about the operation itself, right? So they had 150 aircraft in the air. They had all these different things. Like, it's all over the news. But one of the things that they're not really spending a lot of time talking about that I think is interesting is what exactly was on the ground they're protecting Caracas in particular, like, as this happened, because it was just, I don't know, like 2 months ago that Maduro's on live television screaming at Trump, like, come and get me, fucker. Like, very famously, like, 'cause so he had just signed a defense deal. He refreshed and had signed a defense deal with Russia. And so Russia installed, and I think I sent the video to you. So Russia sells him this $2 billion system called the S-300 VM. And I think if you take the video that I sent you and you just play like the first part of it, like, you
hold on a second before we do that.
Oh, did you find the video?
Yeah.
There you go.
I spy on my competitors every day over coffee.
You're
Let me show
welcome,
you what I
sir.
do. So I use this website.
Hey, by the way, like
similarweb.com.
and
They have a
subscribe to the
7-day
show
free
so we can
trial.
run these ads
And
as well.
Venga por mí.
Come get
Aquí
me!
lo espero en Miraflores. No se tarde en llegar, cobarde.
U.S. Special Forces capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
Is he giving the thumbs up right there?
He's probably just trying to get the circulation back into his hands.
Yeah, I had to find that video.
Arrested by the DEA, just like Noriega.
All right, so what you were saying.
Yeah, this is it. So,
All right, so you were saying Russia sold them a $2 billion
this
anti-air defense system?
This is the Russian version of the Iron Dome system that Israel has, and,
No,
and we
it's
have.
not.
I'm not kidding you.
Like, it's the Russian version. Like, they're like, hey, we can protect you like the Iron Dome protects Israel.
This thing, if you dig into this, and now this thing is, 20 years old in generation from when they first came up with this, but they literally sold this to Venezuela, $2 billion system here that can defend rockets, hypersonic missiles, aircraft, everything out of the air.
Let's check it out.
This thing right here.
Where's my mouse? That's pretty cool.
During the 2000s, the Venezuelan armed forces moved rapidly to modernize their training systems and weaponry as relations with the United States deteriorated. As a result, Caracas acquired, within a relatively short period, one of the most advanced air power and air defense capabilities in Latin America. Attention to Venezuela's air warfare capacity has intensified again in recent years, following increased military pressure from Washington, marked by additional troop deployments in the Caribbean region, including the presence of fifth-generation F-35 fighter squadrons.
They put this
and
video,
US
this
Navy
video right here. They
assets
put out, I
equipped
think,
with destroyers
2 weeks ago.
and
Oh, really?
nuclear-powered attack
3 weeks,
submarines.
maybe a month ago, whatever
Among
it was.
Venezuela's various military
Interesting.
assets, two elements stand out.
Oh,
as
I'm sorry.
key differentiators.
9 days
Four
ago.
small squadrons
Wow.
of
So,
long-range Su-30
they
MK,
probably
two
produced the
fighter
video
jets,
like maybe
and
a few
several
days
battalions
before
of
that
the
with editing and whatnot. So
S-300
this video
long-range air
is
defense system.
so.
They make it look pretty badass.
I mean, it is. So you could.
The S-300 VM has drawn particular attention due to its perceived suitability for providing asymmetric defense against large-scale air attacks. When tensions with the United States peaked in mid-2019, amid the arrest of mercenaries allegedly funded by Western actors in a suspected sabotage and assassination plot, Venezuela openly deployed the S-300 VM to protect Caracas. This move was taken amid concerns over potential escalation in the form of U.S. air or missile strikes. Unlike the S-300P
Okay,
variants,
you can stop it there. So you have this thing, and it's not just one truck, $2 billion. It's the entire system. It's a
Right.
whole network and all of that, right? So $2 billion, they deployed this and updated it in 2019. Okay, so the other night, this thing didn't even fart.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is completely ineffective. This thing didn't fire. And now there's video that shows you don't have to find it, but everybody on their own free time can go find out. Like, they're now like calling it the autopsy of the S300 VM because it did nothing at all during this.
Well, I was going to say they went in unscathed, like under the cloud of
That
night,
one
like,
helicopter that was hit with a rifle by
Right.
somebody who was staring up at it. Like, but this thing right here didn't do a fucking thing.
right.
So here's
Now, the
where
other thing is, does it show like location versus where they were at and stuff like that with route? Because I mean, obviously, if it's on the other side of the island or something like that.
no. Well, this thing was specifically they put around Caracas. So if if you go and you look at where the population is throughout Venezuela, it's not a small country. It's a big country, but it's where you have I'm going to guess that, the largest percentage, whether it's half, whatever it is, but the largest percentage of the population is going to be in Caracas. And that's definitely where the military base is. That's where the Air Force base is. They have some Russian aircraft. They did not get a single aircraft in the air at all. They got nothing. But this is the thing that fires surface to air missiles that intercepts, whether it's aircraft, ICBMs, or whatever. Like,
Right.
This is so. If you go and you look at the history of this thing, like, Russia's been producing this system. The three largest weapons manufacturers in the world are us, Russia, and China.
Sure.
Right? Not in that order per se, but again, depending on what you're looking at, and if you start talking about nukes, okay, that's a different discussion than this, obviously. But this system here, not even a freaking fart out of it at all. Nothing, not a single shot. So now what we don't know, what we'll probably never know is, okay, did it fail because we moved so quickly and we took it out, with, we took it out. I mean, we did hit targets on the ground. Did we physically hit this thing? Did we hack into the thing? Did we
Do we have inside sources? Do we have somebody in that military that doesn't want him to be in charge? Did they, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the movies, like, hey, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I'm going to take the whole system down or whatever. Do they do a
Could be.
reboot? Like, there's
Yeah.
just so many aspects of
it
this.
could be. I mean, we don't have quote unquote boots on the ground, but we do have CIA on the ground there.
Let's see what this video is. How long is this one? Breaking
This
news.
is Prime News, bringing you the latest developments.
Let's
Saturday
go.
morning, in just 30 minutes, US Delta Force teams pulled Venezuelan President Maduro from his bed and removed him from the country. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan
Is this
military,
AI?
with over 100,000 troops, couldn't even step
It's
outside
like
their
Max
barracks.
Headroom
Naturally,
2.0.
this raises a lot of questions. Why didn't the supposedly impenetrable Russian air defense shield work? Why couldn't the elite guard units mount organized resistance? How was an operation of this scale carried out so quietly and quickly in a capital city like Caracas? And perhaps the most unsettling question, was the Venezuelan military truly helpless? Or did someone on the inside open the door?
Boom.
If you're ready, today we're examining the most controversial 30 minutes in modern military history.
This
So-
is definitely AI.
Yeah. That guy's a little bit Max Headroom like.
It's for civilians
Well
too.
done.
Hospitals switched
Well
to
done,
generate.
AI, on that one.
So now that I'm opening that box a little bit, the Pandora's box there, think about the bigger impact here. When we go back to Panama, you look at, okay, we got Noriega, we got all this, like we talked about earlier. But the other thing that we did then is we tested weapons that no one ever saw before. We talked a little bit about like using battlegrounds to test weapons and everything.
Sure.
But specifically, there were some sort of energy weapons that still to this day are not known or talked about that were tested in Panama. Like there were things that were literally burnt into non-existent. So everybody can go do their own research on that.
Yeah,
I
I'd
got
be
you
interested to
curious
see
now.
I'm curious.
There's whether it was lasers or whether it was microwave, whatever energy weapons or whatever it was.
You know what? Hold on before we go too far. You know what? Let me. Let's see. I can't see.
We're gonna try it with. We're gonna ask Grok if she knows anything.
We're
about
not
it.
gonna just ask Grok. We're gonna bring Grok into conspiracy mode when we ask her this. All right. So you were saying though, like there's some aspects of this that there's already been weapons that are more advanced that we don't have a knowledge of that were utilized in Panama. You're saying?
So specifically during the invasion of Panama, we used a lot of things that.
You're okay.
Oh, okay. We used several things that had never been seen in the battlefield before. So one of them was the Apache longbow helicopters. That was the first conflict that those were widely used for targeting and for exchanging fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so they worked in Panama. Then where did they go immediately after that? Desert Storm.
Sure.
So, and then I threw in the energy weapon things because they had, I mean, after everything was done and, you know, we were out of there, like they were completely unable to explain how certain targets were hit without any evidence. Like, you know, so you would have like a vehicle and you'd have buildings that were completely disintegrated, but with no frag damage anywhere around it.
Oh, wow.
So,
all right, let's see. Hey Grok, we're exploring the recent attack on Venezuela where the air defense system they paid $2 billion from did absolutely nothing. During this conversation, it was brought up that there might have been some kind of high energy weapons utilized during the attack on Panama where there was no fragment, but things were completely and utterly destroyed. Is there any conspiracy theories right now about the way the U.S. was able to conduct this attack on Venezuela?
Yeah, just this past weekend, January 3rd into 4th, 2026, the U.S. pulled off a big raid in Venezuela, hitting multiple spots in Caracas and elsewhere with helicopters, drones, and special forces. They straight up captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife, flew him out on choppers to a Navy ship. There were airstrikes too, including some that took out Russian-made Buk air defense systems and other gear Venezuela bought for billions. A lot of reports say those defenses got wrecked early or just sat there, failed to fire back because of poor maintenance, sanctions starving them of parts, or maybe getting jammed, hacked in the opening minutes. As for high-energy weapons like directed energy lasers, rods from God, or anything exotic leaving no fragments and vaporizing stuff, nah, nothing credible popping up on that. No conspiracy buzz on X, forums, or news about secret space weapons or DEWs in this op. The damage photos show regular rubble from missiles and rockets, hellfires, collapsed towers, that kind of thing. People are calling it imperialist aggression or a win against a dictator, but the wild sci-fi theories aren't gaining traction yet. The Panama no fragments bit might be mixing it up with old 1989 invasion stories or Havana syndrome stuff, but no link here. If some fringe theory blows up in the next days, it'll probably hit the usual spots first. But right now, zilch.
Oh, bummer.
so
But that does make sense, actually. The fact that most of that equipment probably wasn't maintained at all or used. I mean, let's face it, the military drives around in trucks all day fucking selling drugs and making sure drug lords aren't fucking getting taken care of.
I wasn't insinuating that like they use DEWs on this thing, but what I'm getting at here though is I personally think that piece of machinery was operating to the best of its ability at the time. That is
a very, very good possibility.
That's my theory about it. And to which, so
Russia's like, shit, they fucking just fucked our secret up.
That's where I think the biggest part of this flex is right now, because Russia's struggling against Ukraine. Like the only reason that's limping on is because of what we've been feeding them here. And yeah, they've got nukes, and you know that's a end all option. Of course, that literally is the nuclear option. But let me skip to the punchline here before we end up expiring. Regime changes. This is the beginning. Venezuela's first. You want my list?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Here's regime changes, and it'll tie into this thing right here. So they're first. Cuba's next. I think Cuba is next, and I think Cuba is probably going to happen in the middle of weeks. In the middle of weeks, in the matter of weeks, it's going to be very, very quick. The next big one right behind them, Iran, then Ukraine, and then these next are really kind of a long shot, but I'm going to throw them out anyway. Colombia, Taiwan, and Russia.
Why Taiwan? You think it's going to be done by the Chinese? Is everybody shoring up their battlefield right now?
So
is this like Risk trying to get more?
Sort of like that. And the popular, this could be spot on. My feeling is that this is the same thing of just saying, hey, it's about the gas prices. The simplest approach to that is, and this is part of the libs argument right now. Well, now Trump went and did this. Putin's just going to say, all right, I'm just dropping bombs and taking Ukraine. The same people are now saying, well, since we've done this, Putin is going to go take Ukraine because, Trump just showed you can fly into a country and take a leader out. And then China, Xi is now just going to say, well, we've wanted Taiwan. We're going to go take Taiwan. And so we're just going to, take them. Like, that's the very simplistic view of that. The whole argument of Putin is a Soviet guy and he wants the band back together, I don't buy that. I buy more of your belief of that he's got to stay on offense because he's sick of being on defense. And while he's just been sitting on defense, that defensive line has moved right up to his doorstep and closer and closer.
And if this is any example of the type of air defense that he has and the type of weaponry that has, he's really... A lot of these guys are showing their cards right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because if you would have asked me 2 years ago what I thought of the U.S. military, I'd been like, well, I don't really know how much more badass we are now than we were 20 years ago because people still make the military, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
But, Russia, they've shown face. Like, sure, they have the nuclear option, but ultimately, how reliable are those nuclear options on a global on a large scale attack globally, like to us?
The argument could be made that that program is so incredibly fucking awesome. It's the best thing. It's so much. They have more, and it's even better than ours. Like
right.
We could make that argument, and that's why everything else sucks.
Right.
I'll be pragmatic here to say that could be an option,
of course,
but
ultimately,
I think it's all shit. To your point, I actually think it's all garbage.
I mean, when you're under sanctions for that long, like you talked about other regime changes, Iran, they've been under sanctions for so long. It's only a matter. Like I've had young Iranian men work for me in the car business, and most of the young people are tired of that. They are more westernized. That's not a way that people want to live anymore.
Right. It's
no different than how we are here in the United States. Like the youth is not the same as the youth 30 years ago. They don't have those same moral standards. It's why women are hoes now. It's
they
just
are?
Like stuff's changed over time. Yeah, absolutely.
Not Iranian women. They're not hoes.
Are they? Maybe they want to be.
I think if I have anything to do with it.
But so I think that's like all these countries that have been under sanctions for years, they act because once again, it's politics. It's a stage. We brought up Shakespeare at the beginning of this, right? They all have to act a certain way in order to prevent themselves from either being invaded or ran over in negotiations in different aspects. Unfortunately, Putin's had to put his cards on the table because he said he was going to do something and he did it. Now, do I think he wants any more land than he's already taken? No. Do I think he even had to really do anything to get that land? No. It was mostly supporters already.
Yeah.
But now the fact that he hasn't, and they're still physically at a war, like they're still talking about being at a war. Now we're going into winter. Nobody's going to move and do anything for the next 4
Well,
months,
they
right?
do tend to like to move during winter because their farmland is all frozen. They can't move tanks during spring and summer because of mud, but they
Right.
can during winter. So that's
Oh, is that the way that it is?
Yeah.
I thought it was they couldn't move into late winter and early spring, but either way.
yeah. They prefer winter because everything they do is on tracks. But
Right.
for moving brigades anyway.
But they're at a bad point. Iran, you're right. They probably are going to go with the regime change because eventually people are just going to be tired of it. Like, what are you going to look for? Well, you're going to look for like sabotaging themselves, going after an Iran oil rigger. Who's going to do it? Like local Iranians or somebody inside the military that's just going to try and hinder that leadership a little bit more.
Let's talk about Iran for a minute, though. That's why I have them on this list here. So, and let's talk about sanctions for a little bit, because I don't think most people even understand what that means. They just think like, oh, well, someone at the UN just writes a letter and says, if you do this, we're going to write more letters and tell you we're angry at you or something. But like, not having access to American currency, for instance, like, so if we were to travel to a country that's sanctioned, you have to go with cash. You don't have access even to your own banking there, because sanction doesn't just mean like, well, that means they have to pay more for American bread. No, they don't get anything from us, and they don't connect to our financial systems or anything. And
so right now, their sanctions are blocking Iran government assets in the U.S., prohibiting nearly all U.S. trade and investment with Iran. So they're getting zero U.S. dollar. Targeting Iran's energy sector, including oil exports and entities that help export or ship Iranian oil. Sanctions on Iran's financial sector, including central bank and broader economic sectors. Restrictions on arms trade and many elements of government operations. Designations that freeze assets that bar U.S. persons from doing business with sanctioned individuals and entities. These sanctions severely restrict Iran's ability to earn foreign currency, access to the global financial system, and trade with any other partner that's on the U.S. dollar.
1 week ago, so the monetary system there is called the rial. 1 week ago, the rial lost. The currency has just been a disaster because of all of this. They've had crazy inflation, and the exchange rate is insane. Literally, I think $100 is the equivalent to like, I don't know, 3 million rial. And so literally, like when I've watched people that have gone over there in that exchange currency, you literally have to carry your cash in a backpack because it's that much that you need to use anything. It's wild. But last week, the rial dropped another 40% in value.
Wow.
Like in a day.
So that's pretty intriguing. So I wonder what happened in the last week, because I was just looking, the UN sanctions they're actually taken back, and there was something called a UN sanctions snapback that took place in September.
It's not a hat.
Yeah, definitely not a hat. But essentially, it's like a mechanism that allows them to not have to meet over it. But if they feel that Iran's violated commitments in any way, they can just put the sanctions right back on. So those go into power and above and beyond the U.S. sanctions, which are already so crippling to them.
Yep. And so they literally have taken to the streets. So there's not just protests like, we're putting signs up there saying, orange guy bad or anything like that. Like, they are now hurting each other and killing each other over there over this. They have attempted to assassinate the president like daily, and
is that right? I have not heard that.
Yeah, this is within the last couple of days now, particularly because of what's happening in Venezuela.
Holy shit! Hold on, how many reals do you think you need to make $1?
I told you it's like millions.
1.42 million reals per dollar.
That's what I was saying. Like, so yeah, when you like, I've a couple of the influencers I follow that have gone over there. Like, they literally take an empty backpack with them and will, trade. Like, there's very few places that they're basically near the border that you're going to be able to trade, because American currency can't be traded there. They want it because it's super valuable, but
sure. Yeah, you go there at $5, you're getting robbed.
I mean, possibly. But yeah, it's pretty easy to get there and hire security. If you can get a visa in, and it's you can even as an American in certain areas they'll let you go. But yeah, I've watched people go with $500 and literally like they have to put it in a backpack, and then it's like that. Then they have to find places. You can also you can open up an account. You can open a temporary account there and be able to trade in the real. Like you can do that.
Yeah,
But
I mean, there's ways around it, but essentially it's like a political earthquake. Like people they're not going to be like pissed just about prices. Like the government's never going to be able to fix this the way that it's.
They're not.
Like somebody's going to have to go in there and they're going to have to establish Western relations. They're going to have to go to something like the euro or they're going to have to like create a whole new level of currency and government at that point. Because if you bring that up, the fact that their currencies dropped 75% in a year, like, and inflation's up 50%.
yeah,
Like that's not a broken economy. That's like a done broke back mountain economy.
so the Ayatollah Khomeini is rumored to be making arrangements to flee and go to. So it's an interesting government system there. They have a dictator, supreme leader, but they do also elect a president. So it's kind of I think ceremonious.
Who was murdered already? Was that the previous
It
president?
was the previous Ayatollah, the previous leader.
Wasn't it the president? Was it not?
Well, you can look it up. It's the guy that Trump claims every other speech.
Let's see. Doesn't say. Wow, protests, right? And see, Iran's also one of those countries that just shuts down the fucking internet.
So, and you have
35 people killed, 1,200 people detained just over the last recent. Among the dead are children and minors who human groups say were shot by security forces. Iranian media reports assassination opponents in Tehran, which is believed to be Isabel criminal acts. Figures such as the Reza Pahlavi in exile have praised those as national heroes. So you've already got guys that want to step up. They just don't want to be part of the fucking fight.
Fun fact, the CIA was publicly approved to manipulate the rial in 2007 and has ever since.
Interesting. Well, this just goes back to when you talk about Iran, you talk about everything that Israel's trying to do. I think this is where Trump has to play it smart because Israel's been begging to go back in there and do something. And Trump has to look at it as a sense of, okay, is this, I mean, frankly, and this is just me catching wind of all this now, right? But if I'm Trump, I'm looking at this like, okay, is this my chance? Is this my legacy?
Mm-hmm.
What if I can somehow get Iran to come to the table and create like real peace in the Middle East? And just help us like, can I get that done in 2 years? And if so, how can I do that? Well, I'd imagine Venezuela could play a factor in that as well with their underground trade system being shut down.
I think that's the biggest flex, and that's really what I guess the message that, you know, for those that are still listening,
fucking 3D chess. Give them the laser eyes.
Right? Yeah, it completely is, and I think that's the bigger angle here. It's the biggest flex in all of this is that, okay, so here's the strength of the Russian military equipment here. Like this thing didn't even beep at us. Like we managed to go in, however it was that we took it out. So to go back to the argument of like, even if that thing was completely useless because it's been cut off from parts, well, that was our efforts anyway. So we killed this thing either slowly over the last 20 years, or we killed this thing by way of we had a person hack it, or we killed this thing by way of we bought the
right person,
bought the people off to go there and switch it off. And we just flew in and then just happily flew right back out and dropped them off at Diddy's house. Like whatever, whatever it is, like we defeated this thing. So I think at the same time, like we're flexing and showing that now we're going over to, I think that we'll bookend it with all the world's a stage because I think that like the whole like Putin and Zelensky thing is so much theater in all of that. Like I admire kind of both of the guys in different ways. But if I'm going to Ukraine and I'm saying, we just showed you how fucking useless this thing is, And of course, the Ukraine just took out some drone factory in Russia as well, like uncontested. Like they developed some drones that can fly and dodge all of their radar systems at a certain speed using a certain percentage of batteries. I just saw this, impromptu doc that some guy out in the field, and that's Ukrainian, that's on the battle zones on the Russia side, who blogs and tells everything that they're doing over there. Just told a story about how they took this factory out using drones that they programmed to fly at 21% power, because that was the threshold in terms of its signature of energy coming off of this thing in terms of speed and everything. That's pretty technical, complicated stuff, where it was either completely full of shit or like it sounds credible enough to where like it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Either way, we know they took out this fucking facility and it's gone. And so you look at all the little things that they've done, and I come back to like, okay, if Russia can't deal with this country, that it's all middle-aged men and or 16 and 17-year-olds that are fighting with rifles, and you have all these airplanes and all these helicopters and all these things, and you've got all of these tactics and everything, and you have the ability to sell $2 billion pieces of equipment to people. So, and you can't defeat, it'd be like us fighting a war against Mexico for 2 years.
Yeah, and if you're Putin and you've built a couple of these platforms up and sold them to other countries, they're going to be looking for fucking a return policy.
Yeah, I mean,
hope they brought their receipt.
Hope they bought it through Prime. Yeah. They could just return it to Kohl's.
I'd like to return this $2 billion rocket system. I left the trucks in the parking lot. Here's the QR code on my Amazon Prime account. Good luck with that. Russia, fuck yourself.
Good luck with that. So my prediction, I hope that this was the most effective, like, even though it's not really Cold War, we'll call it a Cold War strike. And I think, because I do think those that I listed earlier, I think Iran's going to have a regime change. Cuba will be first. Something, either Zelensky or Putin are going. One of the two of them are going. And
I think it'll be Zelensky. I think he's on his way out the door. I think everybody's tired of his shit. I think he's worn his welcome out with the fucking NATO and the UN and everything else. I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah. I could 100% see that. And the other thing is, I mean, he's been up for he should have been up for re-election a long time ago. Like the people, and speaking of Ukraine and, men being taken off the streets and everything, I actually have an upcoming guest that I met at the barbershop the other day whose wife is Ukrainian. And he just spent the last 2 weeks in Ukraine with his wife, about directly south of Kyiv, towards the bottom of Ukraine.
Oh, man.
So just hours away from the battlefield. It was interesting having that conversation with the battlefield, because he's been there twice since the war started. And he's like, you take your papers everywhere. He's like, her family made it crystal clear that you do not go anywhere without your papers. You make sure and he'll be interested to have on, because he talked about there's some family members that they believe have like paid off some people and stuff because they've been working their regular job this whole time and they haven't been snatched up and taken to go fight in the war.
Oh yeah.
It just goes to show, he's like, but you could buy anything in that country if you have enough money.
That's the thing of, I've lost the majority of my sympathy for the Ukrainian refugees that have made it here, because they're all wealthy. They did not like walk across the border to Poland and with nothing and then just had to figure it out. Like every one of them that I've met, and there's been a number of them lately. I'm not going to say why, where, and who and whatnot, but they are all wealthy. And I don't mean just a little bit wealthy, like you plus me plus most of the people we know put together, and more than that wealthy. Like These are like, and it's bizarre. Some of them high level jobs and stuff, of course, but like others just like unexplained wealth that came from somewhere. But
about to go to war with Ukraine inside the United States.
Another fun little side note off of that, like I was following another story that has to, this one's kind of makes me, I don't know, I have a weird sense of humor, but there's like this now bounty hunter system going on in Russia right now, that they've created this other sort of special police that they're trying to round up prisoners who, and then you're like, well, why wouldn't they just go to the prison to find the prisoners there? Well, they're letting prisoners out that are going to the front lines to fight, and then they're, you know, of course, organizing and everything, and then they're getting together and go knocking out their COs, whoever, you know, whatever their equivalent is, and then they're going AWOL and disappearing.
These are
And so-
Russian side?
on the Russian side. So
Really?
they're taking prisoners, constricting them, and then, you know, they're going and they're fighting a little bit. Of course, you know, they've
Eventually there's enough of them.
enough
though.
of them. They're like, oh, and by the way, well, thank you for the rifle. By the way, boom, and then you know,
Wow.
taking off and going AWOL. It's like it's not funny, but
It
it's
is fucking funny.
funny
Like, what's what you
because
get?
that's exactly, you know,
Like, that's what you get.
I think about me with, you know, having, you know, 4 Belgian Malinois, and I have one fucker that bites me every single fucking day. And I just look at him, I was like, why do you bite me? And he just looks at me wagging and says, because I'm a fucking Belgian Malinois. Well, it's the same thing about Russian. You know, it's like you take a guy out of prison for doing whatever,
Right.
you give him a rifle and go tell him to do it. You have to expect he's going to fucking bite you. Like,
Yeah, like if you let Diddy out of prison and then you like catch him at Walmart buying baby oil, he's gonna be like, "What are you doing, Diddy?" He's like, duh, baby oil. I am Diddy. I'll be getting one of those kiddie pools in the back when I'm done. I'm fucking building back better, bitch."
what if Maduro and Diddy break out?
That'd be awesome. You know what? Honestly, there should be a skit about that right now.
Yeah.
Where that's them like breaking out. Diddy's rubbing baby oil on him. Maduro's getting him high and fucking feeding him fucking lines of cocaine.
It's just amazing that they both made their fortunes out of oil.
And on that note, good night, everybody.
Good night.
We victorious.